IVM.
Hello and welcome to The Wire Talks. I'm Sidharth Bhatia. Zoya Akhtar's Gully Boy was one of the biggest critical and commercial successes of 2019. With every film of hers, Zoya's reputation as a good and bankable director has only grown. The success of Gully Boy, a compelling tale of Mumbai's hip-hop scene, put her in the top league of directors. A mini-series, Made in Heaven, came in for a lot of praise for its behind-the-scenes portrayal of organizing an Indian wedding. Akhtar, whose parents, Javed Akhtar and Hani Irani, are both noted screenplay writers, studied in Mumbai and at Tisch School of the Arts in New York. She's written all her films and also co-written Honeymoon Travels and Talash. She joins me today to discuss her films, the films she likes, how she sees the industry develop in the future beyond the immediate COVID pandemic, and really speaking, anything she would like to talk about. Zoya, welcome to Wire Talks.
Thank you for inviting me.
I'm very glad. We've been thinking of this for some time, but anyway, I'm glad it's happened. So, you were born to parents who both were very closely associated with the film industry. Your mother had been a child star in her time. Your father was just beginning his career as a scriptwriter. What was the atmosphere like? I mean, was films all around you?
Yes, films was all around us. I mean, this was like I was born in the 70s and even growing up, it wasn't considered, cool that people are from the film family. They were like, we were looked upon like the circus, in school and stuff. It wasn't like the most cool thing as it is now on some weird level. It's like, it's aspirational. It wasn't really like that. And the industry kind of stayed with each other, So there was a lot of film people around. We were very used to directors and actors and producers and writers and assistants in and out of our homes. But my dad was also way more eclectic in that sense. He's a poet. He has a completely different world also that he accesses of writers and musicians and poets. So it was actually my house and our childhood was full of artists, actually. Growing up was good. It was good.
Yeah, but that was a nice kind of cultural, from the high culture, if I may say, to the not low culture, because I'm a pakka fan of Hindi cinema, so I won't call it low culture, but certainly popular culture.
Yeah.
Because that poet in Javed Saab, is kind of delves deep into a historic legacy, personal legacy, plus the knowledge base and all that.
Right.
So, was the discussion around you at home, like filmy, if in a manner of speaking, if you know what I mean?
Yes, because you, at a very early age, start looking at films in a particular way. Like, we never got film magazines at home, We never had access to that stuff as children because we didn't get them to our homes. And it wasn't only talk of like dhanda and box office. It wasn't like that. So as kids, you grow up and when you're looking at a film and your parents are discussing the screenplay or they're talking about the cinematography or a particular performance or how good this, editor was or, so you start looking at films in a very different way and you start noticing the craft. And you realize how storytelling could have worked or how this film could have worked or why did it fail. So that kind of conversation you just take in by osmosis because it's around you. And I think subconsciously you start looking at films in a particular way. Even though you're a fan and you're the audience because we make movies because we love movies. But you actually look at it in a different way because that's the conversation around you.
So, Xavier's, it must have been a totally different world. It's a little more cosmopolitan in that sense. You mix with all kinds of...
in a cosmopolitan school. I went to Naezy Cooper, which was a co-ed school, and it had people from every community, every strata of society, and it was a wonderful experience. And then from that to go to Xavier's was, different. Bombay itself is cosmopolitan.
That is true.
So you don't really, there's no culture shocks in Bombay in that way. So it's just a very easy in.
Now, you went to Tisch soon after that, right? After Xavier's.
I did a degree at Xavier's. So I did my degree in literature and sociology, and then I went and did a diploma in film.
But was somewhere along the way, while in Xavier's, before in Xavier's, even before that, you had already decided cinema is it for me?
Yeah, I think before I decided that filming is it for me, it was writing. Before anything, I knew I wanted to be a writer. And the late 80s, the films were pretty shitty because that's when I was getting out of school and getting into college, So 88 was when I got out of school. The movies were so bad that I just didn't relate to it. And I grew up watching everything. Of course, we grew up watching Indian films, but my mom was a film student and she was educating herself. So I grew up watching all kinds of world cinema, all the American movies, all the musicals. So our film education was vast. And, my mother would buy films and get films and collect films. And, so I'd heard of filmmakers that my friends didn't know of and things like that. So the exposure was way more. And I didn't know how I would fit in to the Hindi film scene at that time. And I thought maybe I should do advertising and I can be a copywriter. So while I was still in Xavier's, I took up a job writing commercials, writing ads and corporate films. And I saw Salam Bombay. And I was like, I'm going to make movies. That's when I think it's cinched that I'm going to direct. Before that, I thought I'd be a writer.
Was the sensibility, I mean, you were already seeing Hindi, international movies, as you said, musicals, perhaps westerns and everything. Video had just come around that time, so you had access at home. But even so, when you went to New York, did you find the sensibility very different there? The techniques, the production values, the way they told a story? So it must have been a kind of not culture shock, but certainly a shift.
Of course. I mean, a shift in the sense like I had never worked on a Hindi movie before that, So I had come out, I'd gone into college, I go to New York, I do my diploma, and then I had worked with Meera before I went to New York, Nair. So I had come out of college. I was working in advertising. I started working with Meera Nair. Okay, so that was an American production with an all-American crew. So your training on set was done in a US way, in an American system. Then I went into NYU. Then I got out and then I got a job in New York as a PA and I worked on a movie. By the time I came back, there were all these foreign funded films that were happening in India and all these foreign commercials. I started aiding on that. The first Hindi film I worked on was Dil Dhadakne Do. So I hadn't worked on a Hindi movie till Dil Dhadakne Do happened. And then we did with Dil Dhadakne Do the way we were educated and trained as assistant directors. So we shot it in one schedule. We shot it sync sound. So, all the films in India were dubbed. And at that year, there was Amir Khan's Lagan and Dil Dhadakne Do that both started using sync sound, that started using a particular kind of AD system, that started shooting in one schedule. So we were part of the shift, that happened. But, there was no culture shock because I wasn't thrown on set in any other format. In that sense. So I worked this way and then I continued to work this way because I just applied it to where I was working.
So you had never experienced the chaos and the chaotic...
Chaos on every set.
No, I understand that. But the thing is, writing the hero's lines and that kind of thing, all that you didn't see.
Never. No, I've never had those experiences.
Your Dil Dhadakne Do, of course, but even your films have a kind of, I would say, Indian feel, Indian stories. But there is a Western sensibility there. I mean, I'm going to come to something like Dil Dhadakne Do or Zindagi. There is a kind of Western, the whole buddy scenario, the body language sometimes, the sets, etc., etc. So surely, I mean, you're informed by both these worlds in a sense.
I mean, I am a hybrid of these worlds. These worlds exist in my life. And as a Hindi film industry in my DNA, as I am with the exposure and education I've had and the places I've lived in and where I've gone and who my friend circle are, what my life is. So this is my life. I do take road trips and I've taken them all over India. I don't think people realize how much I've traveled in India, and I've taken them all over Europe and all over the US, and that's my life, and Australia. So the thing is that my life is experiences I can put onto film. And I come from privilege, and that is true. And I have had a particular experience. I use that in some of the work I do. like Luck by Chance is my experience. I've been in the film industry. I know these people. I've seen this happen. Zindagi is an experience of my life. Dil Dhadakne Do is not my family because my family is not like this, but I know these families. I know these people, and Gully Boy was actually the film I made that was on a level the most removed from me, but also familiar because I'm a Bombay girl, so I know Dharavi really well. And I understand artists, So there is a common ground in what those kids are doing and what I try to do. And there is a similarity there. So you can connect on the basis of the art, and that's what connects you and breaks all those barriers. And you're familiar with it. You don't really know it. So the maximum research and digging I had to do was for that film, or like a Lust Stories. That's not my world, but I know it exists. So then you work harder. But all these things are in your purview. None of it is alien.
So, but the gaze shifts, obviously. I mean, Gully Boy, the gaze is different and Dil Dhadakne Do.
Absolutely. And you're one of the very few people that brought that up to discuss, absolutely. Because when, like to me, I weirdly, though I come a little more from a Dil Dhadakne Do space, I would meet those people more in my life than say I come in terms of like a Gully Boy, those kids, because they're another generation from me. They're another level and they're another generation. I'm not hanging with 21-year-olds, so that's another space completely. But I knew gaze-wise, because of the story I was telling and how I was telling it, that Gully Boy had to be inside looking out and Dil Dhadakne Do had to be outside looking at them. Because the way I wanted to tell the story, I wanted to look at these people in Dil Dhadakne Do as though like the dog Pluto is studying privileged Punjabis. Like it's a National Geographic, it's like a Norman Desmond thing, but it's kind of turned around and he's studying humans and they just happen to be this community and they happen to be these uber privileged people, and why do they function the way they function? So when you want to look at that narrative, so there are actually no real close-ups in Dil Dhadakne Do. Everything is either a mid or a wide. There are one or two close-ups when you can't escape because, like, say, they're kissing or, that kind of thing. Then there's a close-up because you have to be that close. Otherwise, there are no close-ups. You're always looking at them slightly distant because it's observational. Whereas with Gully Boy, I didn't want the gaze to be, I'm looking at these underprivileged kids. I didn't want that to be the gaze. I wanted to be them. I wanted to be with them, and I wanted to see the world from their eyes and how that world engages them. So then you make choices like that. You make camera choices like that. Everything is, much more free-flowing, closer to them. You use production design in a way that let's just look at Bombay City in a way that would allow this character. So this character would be allowed into the parking lot and not in the club. This character would be allowed into a government institution. And a character would be allowed into this kind of hospital and this kind of school, college. So then this character would have no space to really hang out. So they would all hang in a defunct train. So you start looking at it from another view. Like we never saw the sea in it. There's one shot of the sea. When life opens up a little bit, you don't see too much of the sky because there isn't that in the slums. So you started designing it and looking at it from the inside looking out.
So there was that claustrophobia was there, but I'm going to come to that film a little later. I wanted to actually go to Luck by Chance, which is really, for me, one of your interestingly most intimate films, rather than this vast expanse of who's fighting with whom, relationships, etc. But it's kind of the story of this young girl who wants to stand on her own. Now, I'm going to say something which you probably will find way off tangent or something like that. It reminded me, it might even be a nod to Sri Charsobis in the sense of this young, innocent boy who falls in love with somebody who's like him, and sweet, and then gets sucked into and literally seduced by this famous actress. Except that your end, without giving away spoilers, was according to me, a more realistic, but not a Hindi film end of, kind of upbeat. It was a bit of a downer in that sense, but she does stand up. for herself.
Yeah. And I think, the thing is, because to me, that film is not a love story. That film is about ambition, and it's about, does your self-esteem affect your destiny? So how I view myself and what my idea and what my sense of self-respect is, and does that actually affect my life? The choices I make, the opportunities I get, the chances I'll take, my career, will it affect my destiny? Will it control my destiny, how I view myself? So that is what the film is actually about. So for her, she comes she arcs it, because she's somebody who's like, if it's meant for me, it'll come to me. If it's in my destiny, it'll be mine. And he's the kind of character that is like, I'm going to go and I'm going to get it. I deserve this.
And become manipulative, actually.
Yeah, whatever it takes. But there is a difference in psychology. And I think at the end, when she stands up for herself, is one thing is a question of, I don't want to be in your life to support you. My life is not going to be about you, A. And B, you learn how to define success, because this is a place, this industry is a really funky place, because we are told that we are successful or not by everyone else, whether it's your colleagues, whether it's the people that employ you, whether it's the audience that watches you. I mean, it's the press. Everybody tells you whether you are a success or not. So where does that sense of self go? I wanted to be a filmmaker. I am a filmmaker. I am a success story because I did what I set out to do. Someone wants to be a singer, they cut an album, they're successful, according to me. Because people don't get to do what they want to do. Then you go into this, okay, so some people think I'm really successful because I had 100 crore hit, but I'm not really that successful because I never hit 200 crores. Do you understand? So she hasn't worked with the Khans, or she hasn't made that money, but oh my God, she's made this and she's made that and she won this. I mean, bottom line is everyone out. Where do you stop? Where do you breathe? And where do you say, am I successful? Do I feel I'm successful? Am I still striving for something else? And what the hell is my idea of success? Is it Filmfare Awards? Is it that much money in the bank? Is it owning a studio? Is it actually working just 5-day weeks and having the weekend off? What is your idea of success? And no newspaper is going to tell you that.
The character, Konkona Sen's character, she has no choices like this to actually think on such a big scale because her own life is so humble and she's still struggling. So actually, I don't know whether she can measure success that way, but she can certainly measure self-esteem that way.
She can measure self-esteem that way, and you measure success that way because she becomes a very popular TV star. And she starts working. And the point is, she is like, you know what? I came here to act. And this is the medium I fit into. And I came here to act, and I'm an actress. And I'm getting work and I'm doing well. And boss, you're a success. That's it. We have told ourselves that being a film star will be better than being a... Do you understand? Who's telling you this?
You made some kind of gentle and not so gentle digs and, taunts. Not taunts, but kind of, it was a bit of like mocking the film industry's ways, superstitious producers. Lovely stereotypes, by the way, and I think Rishi Kapoor was top of his game. But starry mother, the writer who's sitting there trying to explain, little bit of an airhead heroine, etc., etc. So you made that kind of this. So why is it that when people make film people make films about those, they make these kind of... I've seen this in many other films.
The film industry is not a planet. Firstly, it is part of this society. So when we say superstitious producers, they are equal to superstitious businessmen, superstitious, sportsmen. It's all the same. We are the same people. So I am showing you a film producer. You're not understanding his business beyond a point. You're not understanding what he has to do. But you're understanding the emotion. You're relating to the fact that he is praying because you are doing the same thing, boss. Bottom line is it is the same. We are all Indians. We are behaving the same way in any industry and sphere. Do these people exist? Yes, they exist. Yes, they are there. And you're making fun of it, but each one has to be layered. They can't just be caricatures. So yes, Rishi Kapoor would play this superstitious guy and he would do all these things and he would, be this flamboyant big guy, but he's the same guy who is very aware that his time is turning. He's the same guy who's suddenly like, man, I've been in this industry, I've done this stuff, and today no one's returning my phone call. There is also that truth and layer to it, which I think is what the world is. And we have to make films we also entertain.
So you move to two films which have some commonalities in the sense ensemble casts, beautiful locations, very good looking people, like everything so good looking. Or one is almost tempted to say Karan Johar territory. But of course, inside it are stories of struggle. Inside it are dysfunctional stories of dysfunction. That scene in which finally Anil Kapoor stands up for his daughter in Dil Dhadakne Do. Actually, I think that a Birkin bag scene was could have been ironical, but it just held back a bit. It's all that. But those touches are there because I think, as you said, you're familiar with this world. But do you think that these are kind of alien stories to you in a sense? Because then Gully Boy comes and Luck by Chance is bookended on one side.
What do you mean by alien stories? Like, I didn't understand.
I mean by saying kind of at a fantasy level for the audience. So you're making stories which are really fantasies for the audience. Where imagine somebody inviting all his friends to go on a 10-day cruise. I mean, it's...
I do know those people.
But the audience doesn't, no, by and large.
I'm saying the audience doesn't even know people who are murdering other people. Do you understand? So the audience is watching that also. The audience doesn't know people that are hookers and murderers. And they don't know these people. But they exist. Yes, they exist. Are you into it? The point is, are the human conflicts the same? The audience, honestly, knows people that will give their business to their husband, to their son. They know that the daughter will not inherit the business. The audience knows these people. The audience knows people where even if you're in a bad marriage, the parents will say, stick it. So those conflicts are very, very universal in India. Is it on a ship and is that throwing you off? Then that's a separate story, which I don't understand why, because I think that it's not Dil Dhadakne Do is not the first film made in India about people that have money. I think the alienation is in the morality and not in the wealth or the privilege. Because I think people are very used to seeing rich people, but it's okay if you're, praying and you're saying the same you're okay with the same morality that exists. The minute you push with that, I think that's where the alienation comes in. I don't think Dil Dhadakne Do is the first film about rich people.
No, it's not. It's not. But I'm saying...
How does it matter what the economic strata of the society is?
In my sense, it doesn't have to be realistic in the kind of literal sense of the word. You don't have to have stories only about middle-class families feeling the same emotions, being partial to their son and not to their daughter. You don't have to be. But I'm saying that the gloss and the scale of the storytelling puts it in a kind of league of, oh my God, this is unattainable. Aren't these people funny? Because I'm a average audience Joe. I'm looking at it and saying, oh my God, even the rich live like this. They have problems while they're, buying the best of everything and going to the finest places in the world and eating the finest food.
But you're too smart to think that if you have money, you won't have problems. I mean, please. Because you have money, your heart won't break. Or if you have money,
it
your
will.
parents will let you do whatever you want.
But it's a one layer removed from me.
So?
No. I mean, this is not an argument about why it is like this.
And it's 50 layers removed from me. It is totally removed from me. And I love it. I love it. I mean, see, bottom line is you either get into it or you don't. But am I going to like I made Made in Heaven again, which is set in the same world. with a different take. It is the upper crust of Delhi. Yeah. And I enjoy that. And I enjoy it as much as I enjoy making a Gully Boy. If a story or a world interests me, I'm going to do it because I can do it. I know how to do it well.
So Made in Heaven, to be fair, had a lot of slyness to it. It was very clever, witty. Your tongue was firmly in cheek in some of the things. I felt that Dil Dhadakne Do was a little, lacking in irony. Now, this is not a criticism. I mean, I'm just saying that here I am somebody who sees a lot
No,
of
absolutely. But I mean, did you feel the need for irony? Do you feel the need for irony in everything you watch?
No, but sometimes there is a tonality to the whole thing. Again, now this is your film, your story, your way of telling. I'm
Correct.
saying that that tonality of a little bit of irony to say, hello, I'm not making fun of these rich people, but did you know? And Made in Heaven had all that. Through the device of the young girl, through the device of the organizers.
I obviously tried to do that through the device of Pluto, the dog, and I mean, clearly we didn't hit those boxes if you didn't see it that way.
I did. But Pluto is sardonic, funny, everything.
And you observe it in a particularly different way because see, the difference is when you start, it's very weird to get preachy. It's very weird to have a human tell another human, this is right. It's weird, but it's interesting to observe it. And we thought it was interesting to observe it from the family dog's point of view, and that's what we did. And I mean, like, you can look back and I know there are things about that film that maybe didn't work. But then those are my secrets to keep.
No, that Pluto thing was an actually very, very clever idea. And now that I think of it, I think he was I don't know whether everyone got into it because I certainly, it's your telling me, now I'm observing and thinking about it that much
because
more.
the thing was there was a lot of backlash about, I mean, it did well. It's not like it didn't do well, but we thought it would do better than it did. And that's the truth of it. But, there was a lot of it's about rich people and it's first world. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Women being discriminated against, no matter how exposed, educated and rich families are, is not a first world problem. This is not a first world problem. This is our problem. So you can turn around and say first world problem. What is the first world problem? That a woman is not being allowed to get a divorce. Not a first world problem. Please. And just because you're looking at a ship and think it's first world, then what do you say to this? See, you can read an article, you can read a review, and you take the criticism that is true. And you accept that and you better learn and grow from it. But when you get stuff like this, that this is about rich people, it's not criticism. It's senseless.
I mean, we can go on and on that one. Actually, everyone, and I certainly want to know about Gully Boy, but I'll come to that in a minute. How was it to direct an ensemble cast?
I love working with ensembles. I really enjoy it because they are, if you work with really good actors, I think what happens is there's a camaraderie that's formed and everyone ups their game. They really up their game because then everyone's playing off each other when they're good actors. And it's a really nice environment. There's a lot of energy, there's a lot of camaraderie, and I think everybody just gets better, So I enjoy ensembles. I also enjoy characters. I like more characters, more things, more people, more, so I enjoy it. And I have always ended up working in ensembles, so it's good.
So, Gully Boy, quite a change from your past two films. It's a story about hip-hop, yes, but for me, it's a story about Bombay, about Mumbai. It's survival, class differences, ambition, some little bit of also that if you have something in you, there is a good chance you could make it. And people striving to be better than themselves and their backgrounds. And some very, very unusual locations, I must say, despite the fact that you're saying it was not very... I mean, too full of wides and all that. Did you go to M Ward at all. I felt that there was one scene shot in Govandi or Chembur or something. But anyway, in the kind of one of those government blocks or buildings or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should in government blocks.
So, and of course, Dharavi shot extremely intimately, extremely inside. And you begin by mocking that tourists who are saying, wow, but there's a temptation to think that you might end up doing, and you don't. So all that, great this. How did the subject come about?
The subject came about because I really like hip hop and I listen to a lot of hip hop, and I was really not engaging the Indian scene because the kind of music that was out there was too commercial and it wasn't a personal thing. And hip hop is pretty personal, really. So I used to only listen to mainly American artists. And I was editing Dil Dhadakne Do, and my editor, Anand Suvai, who's also a musician, he showed me this video. And there was this artist called Naezy, and he had done this track called Afat. And it was photographed on like an iPad or something in Dharavi. I couldn't get over it. I was watching it on repeat. He had an incredible flow. The stuff that he was singing about was like that entire generation and that entire class is just not represented in pop culture at all, you know. And it was like, if no one's going to tell our stories, we're going to do it. So I started digging deeper and I realized there was an entire underground scene, like a full-blown scene. There were artists with fan following, YouTube channels, the work. So I contacted this guy through Ankur Tiwari, who was my music supervisor, and he's one of my besties. I called him and I'm like, dude, I need to find this guy. And he used to work with MTV Indies, so he's got his tentacles everywhere, you know, with the music industry. So he found him and he said, do you want to meet him? And I'm like, yeah. So I set up like a half an hour, you know, chai meeting with Naezy, which ended up becoming 4 hours. And we just spoke about his life, about how he got into rap, what has inspired him, who his artists are, and what does he write. And it just blew my mind. And there was this level of purity that you just don't come across here often, you know. And I work in commercial cinema. So for me, it was like going back to film school, meeting these kids. And it was unbelievable. And they were talking about their reality, their space, what they want, how they feel discriminated against, and nobody else was doing it. And they were putting it out there. And it just led to me ending up going to his shows. Then I met Divine. Divine was opening a show for him at Blue Frog, which was a club. And then I went backstage and hung with them. And then I started talking to Divine and took his phone number. Then I called him and then I met him for a couple of hours and reminded me. After that, we started doing extensive interviews. We would just interview these kids. We'd go and hang out in Dharavi, just chill, just see. And we knew there was a story here. So the story is fiction, but it's been gleaned out of a lot of incidents of their life. And they were our two touchstone people. And we call them for everything. So they were our consultants. And then we did workshops with 40 kids to figure who can do what music, who can be cast where. It was an incredible experience.
So I met Naezy about 5 years ago before he he had just made one video. Teri Gali Mein, I think, is both of them, but this one was just him. And he told me the story, how his father was in Dubai and he had sent him an iPad and at night he used to do. But he also told me something else, which he must have definitely told you, that his family hated what he was doing. He's from Kurla, really. But his family hated what he was doing because they felt that music was un-Islamic. And that really cuts to the core of the whole thing because hip-hop is about identity, ultimately. And I felt the identity part was kind of flattened over a bit. You chose to kind of just talk about the class aspect, really. But in a way, it's fantastic that, Alia...
the minute I would have started speaking about against the religion, you kabhi hold it. The point is not that. It's not because the bottom line is he is an artist. So, I mean, beyond the point, he's singing. So, that wasn't his biggest hurdle, clearly. Yeah. And very early on, that was established, right? The biggest issue is the class issue. And that cuts across every community. And that to me is a much more, this is not about being Muslim or being Christian or and weirdly, besides being most into the music of these two artists, that's Divine and him, there was also I just connected with the two of them, you know, in a real way. And one was Muslim and one was Christian, and they're both minorities. But it wasn't about that. It was about the class that goes across the board. Across the board. So the minute you made it that, I think you're making that story. And also Secret Superstar was that. You know, so you've done it. It's done.
Another thing that I read in a lot of places, though I felt one could really live with it, was that the really hard-hitting political content of songs like Azadi, etc., was toned down, and the words were changed. It's still, you're talking about fighting against the system, and really he is fighting against a particular system in many ways. But Azadi also has lines which were not there in this. So was there a deliberate attempt?
Like which lines?
Manuvad.
It's got nothing to do with this character and the story. It's got nothing to do with him. So why are you picking every issue?
No, I'm not.
No, I'm saying as a filmmaker, when I'm putting something out, I have to stick to the truth of my story. The minute I start talking about this also and that also and that also and that also, the bullet doesn't go straight.
But it's a well-known song.
It's not a song, firstly.
It's
a song I've made. There's no song before this. It's a chant. That chant of Azadi has come from the feminist movement in Pakistan, okay, which was brought here by Kamla Basi. No one owns it. It keeps morphing and it keeps changing with whoever wants to talk about what's oppressing them.
Dab
Right?
Sharma's songs have been used in this. I mean, his version of those lines, Tera Pinjara and all that. So there is a kind of musical part to the whole thing.
Yes, of course. And then we wrote it. We wrote the whole thing with Divine and Dub so that it fits the fabric of our movie. Now we start talking about something completely different. Then we start talking about, we can talk about everything under the sun, but is it required? And is it going to take away from what I'm trying to say? And what this character is, what he denotes and signifies, and what his battle is right now in this context. So you have to, the arrow has to hit the bullseye. You can't be going this way and getting into things that are going to deflect the attention from what you're trying to say.
So you think class was the only thing here that he has to make it and get out of where he is?
I think his biggest disadvantage is that, yes, he is a class, and within that he's Muslim, you know. So his opportunities are slightly lesser. But opportunities are as hard for Hindu kids in that class. It is as hard. We have a lot of brothers and sisters population. So it is as difficult. I have worked with kids across the board in that. They were all part of the film, you know. And you talk to them and it's a similar experience. Whether there are other things or not things, this is what I chose. And I just don't like deflecting too many things. Like if this is where you want to go, stick with this tone. Because then you can just keep going and if you don't actually make any point.
It's your biggest success so far commercially. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now you're really, you got a wide choice of deciding whatever next and all that. But you chose to make those 2 short films and you're, I think, working on a third, Ghost Stories or something. What are you working on?
I've actually started a company. I started a company a while ago, Tiger Baby, Rima Kakti and me. So we are actually putting together our slate of work, which includes shows and films. So that's what we've been working on. We are writing, doing 2 shows for Amazon. She's helming one. I'm on Made in Heaven and she's on one that's new with Sonakshi in the lead. And so she's working on that. And I'm working on something else. So that's happening parallelly. We start shooting that very soon. We got stuck because of COVID. And we have films coming up. We have shows coming up. And we are writing our own directorial stuff. So we are hands full.
What are your favorite films? What are international and Indian? What is the genre of your favorite films?
I love movies. I watch most kind of movies. But when you say favorite, for me, favorite is that thing that you keep repeating. So your favorite pair of jeans is the one you wear the most. It could be the oldest, your favorite I'll eat vanilla, but I'll keep going back to chocolate. That's my favorite. So my favorite, I know this sounds so weird, movies are the ones that I've watched again and again and again, and they're all gangster movies. It's just the gangster genre. I don't know what it is about that genre that really attracts me. And I know it's like mindless violence sometimes and all that. But there is something about that fallen hero that I find very attractive. And, whether it's the Godfather series, whether it's Carlito's Way, whether it's Brian De Palma's Scarface, whether it's Heat, whether it's, all the Scorsese library, from Goodfellas to Casino to Mean Streets. I just watch those films. If it's on, I won't put it off.
But have you gone back to the 40s in Hollywood with those gangster films?
Cagney and all. Yeah.
Cagney, George Raft, and also the whole classic noir.
The classic noir, yeah. But it's not repeated.
No, well, but I felt that there was noirish touches to Talash, which of course, Rima shot it, but you...
Rima's a full cinephile and she is very big on noir. And not just in terms of noir film, she's also big on noir literature. Very, very big. So yes, you're right. Absolutely.
Yeah. One last question. How do you see the industry shaping up because of the direct impact of the COVID? That means theaters not opening and all that. The budgets of films, blockbusters, because everyone's wanting to make for OTT, or the films will have to be, because the economics is going to change. How do you think it's shaping up?
I think, COVID is going to go now. We're not going to be living the rest of our life like this. So COVID will be sorted, and the minute COVID is sorted, cinemas will be open again. So cinemas, nothing is going to replace the theater. Like, I genuinely, absolutely, completely believe that. Because people have been trying to replace the theater and, marking it dead forever. The minute videos came out, they were like, TV came out. They were like, this is the end of cinema. Then video came out. Then LDs came out. Then surround sound came out. They were like, why go to the theater now? Now we have OTT platforms. But since the OTT platforms came to India, the footfalls to cinemas have just increased. They've just increased. So it's COVID, and it's going to go, and it's going to go back. Also, experientially, they're both amazing, but they're both completely different. So if I'm watching The Crown, it's not like a community experience. I watch one it's like reading a book. It's like my personal space. I will watch it one episode at a time before I go to bed, or, I can see it when I want, or I can take it with me on my iPad, or, it's a very different thing. But a theater experience is a bunch of people. It's a community experience. You're in a dark room. It's larger than life. I'm never going to watch a horror movie in my house alone. Ever. These are community experiences. So they cannot, and they have different joys and different comforts and it's never going to be interchanged. So I really believe it's going to bounce back. And till then, we are blessed to have the OTT platforms because it's for various reasons. One is because it's helped us while the cinemas were shut. But two, you have access to content all over the world. You're watching it. So you're developing your palette as an audience. You're seeing stuff. You're getting closer to different cultures. You're getting familiar with different languages. And the third thing is, as an Indian industry, you are competing on a global scale. I mean, this last night, Delhi Crime has won the Emmy for the best series. International Emmy for the best series. It's huge. It's India's first Emmy. It's amazing. It's really, really exciting. So today, when I put A Maid in Heaven, I am on the same page as the marvelous Miss Maisel and Fauda, and you are on par. So that is wonderful. Your work is being seen by people that normally wouldn't have had access to it. The borders are blurring, and we need to be able to compete on that level, Which is why I don't think that they can have censorship on the OTT platform. You'll be handicapping your industry, and you'll be handicapping your audience. You're not only going to censor us, you're going to censor everybody. You'll censor also the global content. So your audience is suddenly going to not have anything.
So everyone will have to now up their game to be on an international platform.
I think that's already happening.
That's right, yes.
That's what I'm saying. They've won. Last night, I was so excited. It's outstanding. India won its first Emmy. It's superb.
So that was Zoya Akhtar talking passionately and energetically about her films, about the kind of movies she likes, and about how she sees the industry growing. I hope you enjoyed. Please join us once again next week for another edition of the Wire Talks. You can check out this podcast and other interesting ones on the Wire website, the IVM podcast website, app, or wherever else that you get your podcasts. Goodbye from me, Sidharth Bhatia, and the Wire Talks podcast team.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Another fun week in the books last week, and I think you guys should definitely check out some of the shows that we did. So first, let me tell you about Cock and Bull. We did 2 Cock and Bulls on Cyrus Says last week, which is, I don't think we've ever done before. But there was just so much to talk about, and it was fun. The first one was just on Trish, myself, and Cyrus. The second one, we had Abhijit Ganguly on, and that was a great episode. Do check that out. Check out Know Your Kanun as well. It's been a while since I spoke about that show, but Amber's been doing a great job on it. This week he spoke to Naina Sharma, a Canadian lawyer, about the ways that you do business in Canada and the challenges that presents. Definitely very interesting stuff. Do check that out. The guys at Naan Curry are doing some really, really fun stuff. Do check out their latest episode. They talk about roti, the simple bread, but it's got some complications to it. Let them tell you about what they are. Do check that out. Also, do definitely check out the Wire Talks with Sidharth Bhatia. He's been killing it, man. It's just a new show, but what great conversations. This week, he had Sidharth Singh on to talk about pollution. Do check that out. And you know what, guys? The best news of all, Simplified is back. They've been back for a few weeks and I haven't called them out before, but remember that they're back and do check them out. This week, they talk about, does censorship make sense? Knowing the guys, I think I know the answer to that, but you should go check that out. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
Whether you're an established sports person or a budding one, or simply a sports enthusiast, join us, Tanvi and Shlok.
We are 2 passionate pro badminton players talking policy, mindset and everything sport.
So tune in to The Millennial Athlete every Monday.
Only on the IVM Podcast Network.
Trust us, it's gonna be lit.